This video is a short tutorial on how to use the classification workflow in ENVI. In this video, we're going to do an unsupervised classification of a Landsat surface reflectance data set. This data set is from 1984 from the Mount St. Helens. Again, this is the level 2 data that has already been calibrated and radiometrically corrected, so the pixel values represent the surface reflectance. The other thing I've already done is created a mask. I don't want to classify the whole image. There's a couple of reasons to do this. One is that it makes more sense to classify only the areas you're interested in. You also need to make sure that ENVI doesn't classify areas that don't have any data. So an easy way to do this is to create a mask that only includes areas where there's actually data in the image. I've done this just by creating a rectangular ROI around Mount St. Helens. We're going to start by going to the toolbox under classification and selecting the classification workflow. Now we're going to select our input raster. That's going to be my Mount St. Helens 1984 image. And I'm going to select the associated mask. I already created the mask and called it Helens mask. Again, the mask is just going to tell the ENVI the areas that we want to have classified. Now we're going to select classification type. No training data. This will be unsupervised classification. So the only thing we need to specify is the number of classes. I'm going to go ahead and leave this at 5 classes. And then we click the next button. And this is the area that's going to take a little bit of time, as the computer is going to run a classification algorithm to look for natural groupings of the data. So it's basically looking for similar spectral patterns and is going to classify or group those things together. This may take a couple minutes, so if you want to get up, stretch, get a cup of coffee, now's the time to do that. Once ENVI is done running the classification, the results will automatically pop up with the cleanup window. This allows you to option to smooth the data or to apply a filter here and to aggregate the data. Basically, this just will remove little pixels here and there that are surrounded by pixels of another class, and it's a way of smoothing or averaging out the data. For now, I'm just going to leave this on. And I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the cleanup and saving my classification results. The last step of the classification workflow is to export the results. So we're going to export the results as a classified image. This is going to save the results as a raster. But I'm going to uncheck the export classification vectors. For most classification, this isn't particularly useful as it creates an individual polygon around each of the cluster of pixels. But I am going to click on the additional export and export these statistics in case I want to look at these later. I'm going to click Finish to export the results. Remember to always double check where you're saving your data and to update your file names as appropriate. Once the export is complete, your classified file should automatically open up in your viewer in ENVI. Now our job is to try and interpret these classes. Again, the computer doesn't care what these classes are. It just groups like pixels or like pixel values together into a class. So we have 5 classes now, and now we're going to try and go through and identify these. One way I have is to turn off or hide all of the classes and turn them on one by one to try and analyze visually what the land cover type is underneath. Obviously, if you have ground truth data or other field collected data, that can make this much easier. Another technique is to change the color composite of your image. So I'm going to change this to the shortwave infrared and near infrared false color composite. This might help me better differentiate different land cover types. You can also look at the spectral profiles of the different classes here. I'm going to go through and do this one by one for each of the classes. Another tool you can use is to use the View Flicker tool. I'm going to change back to my true color composite for a little bit. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn back on, say, class 4 to try and figure out what this class is. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit right here. Turn this class back on. And then now I can use the any of these view tools. I'm going to use the View Flicker tool, which will just automatically turn the layer on and off without me having to click on it. You can also zoom in or out while this tool is on, and you can change the speed of the flicker as well. And I can pause it, or I can increase or decrease the flicker speed. And when I'm done with this tool, I can simply remove this by right-clicking on the View, Flicker, and Remove, or up top by clicking this X in the corner up top. I've spent some time analyzing these classes, and I think I have a pretty good idea of how to name my classes. So I'm going to right-click on the image. I'm going to right-click where it says Classes and select Edit Class Names and Colors. Now I can go through each class one by one and relabel it. Note that each class must have a unique name, even if you call it Vegetation 1 or Vegetation 2. Then I'm going to click on Class Colors, and I'm going to change the color for each of the classes to something that's a little bit more intuitive. Then you're going to do this for all of your classes. Just try to name them the best that you can, especially if you don't have a lot of field collected or ground truth data. I'm going to go with generic broad names for my classes. And when you're done, we're going to click OK, and then it will automatically update your classes and names. I've labeled my classes to the best of my ability, but two of my classes, class 3 and 4, both seem pretty similar and were mostly relatively new forest growth. So I'm going to use the Combine Classes tool to combine these into one class, as it makes sense to have these in one class rather than have them in two separate classes. In the toolbox, under the Classification folder, there's an option for Post Classification. This will have some of these tools. We're going to go over here and click on Post Classification, and I'm going to select Combine Classes. Now it's going to ask me which file I want to combine classes on. I'm going to select my classified image. And now I can select which of the classes I want to combine. I want the classes of newer growth and forest growth to be in one class. I'm going to click newer growth as my input class and the output class as forest new growth. This means that what was class 3 or newer growth will now be combined with class 4 and will only be left with one class. When you're done, click Add Combination. You can do this for as many classes as you want. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So I'm going to do that and tell it to combine classes. The other thing I'm going to do is tell it to remove empty classes. I don't want any of the empty classes left. And when you do the combine class operation, it will create a new file. So you're going to have to save a new file here. I'm going to save this here as something like the file name and maybe 4 classes or reclass, so I know that this is the file that I've reclassified it as. Once you're done, we're going to click OK, and it's going to run the reclass tool. And now we should have a file with 4 classes. Now I want to export the class statistics, so I know how many pixels are in each class so I can calculate the area of each class. Right-click where it says Classes and select Statistics for all classes. Now we want to select our appropriate classification file and select OK. Now we should see the statistics for all of the classes here. What I'm interested in is our 4 classes and the pixel count, or the number of pixels in each of these classes. So I'm going to highlight these and select Copy to Clipboard. This will allow me to paste into Excel or Google Sheets to do my calculations. I'm going to go ahead and open up Microsoft Excel and start a new spreadsheet. And I'm simply going to paste the data here. If we know the number of pixels in each class and the area of each pixel, we could determine the total area of the class. I'm going to do this by double checking the area of a pixel, and that's the spatial resolution. So in ENVI, I can go to the metadata, and I can see for this Landsat image, my pixel size is 30 by 30 meters. That means a single pixel equals 900 square meters. So if I want the total area in square meters for each of the classes, I need to multiply the number of pixels, and I'm going to do this in a formula in Excel, times 900, or the area of a single pixel. When I hit Enter, Excel will automatically calculate the area in square meters. It might make more sense to do this in acres or hectares, which is 10,000 square meters. So using a little Excel formula magic, I can simply divide these two, and then I can copy the values down to the rest of them. Now, what I would probably do is calculate everything in one cell here. So I'm going to go back and take my area in square meters, and then I'm going to divide it by 10,000. So now in this column, it's actually going to be not the area in square meters, but this is the area in hectares. I'm going to relabel my column and update the rest of my cells with the formula by dragging it down. So there's a little trick we can do here. You might not want this column anymore with the number of pixels in it. So to do that, though, we need to remove the formulas from our column right here, or our column D. So an easy way to do this is to highlight it and right-click on it and copy it. And then when I go to paste, I'm going to say paste special and paste values. And now you'll notice the formulas are gone. So if I delete this column, my values will stay. Last thing I'm going to add is a total column to total up the area in hectares. And then I'm going to use this total column to help me calculate the percent area of each class. I'm going to add another heading here, and I'm going to use my formula again by saying equals. And I want to divide the area of water by the total area. This will give me the percent. So this is about 10%. I'm going to change it to percentage up here. You can increase or decrease the decimals in Excel. And so now if I were to just copy this down, you'll notice that right away it's telling me it's dividing by 0 because it's moving my total here. So to avoid doing that and to keep that cell static, you can put the $sign in front of it. So now if I copy it down, Excel will know to always reference that total cell for all of the calculations. And now I have my area in hectares and the percent area of each of my classes.